Hello guys. In the previous video we have seen about Bohr's model of atom. When Bohr came up with that model of atom, he considered a very important development, which is dual nature of radiation. This dual nature of radiation played a major role in the formulation of Bohr's atom model. So let's see what is this dual nature of radiation. Since these topics are not included in your syllabus, I'm not going to explain in detail. I'm just going to give you a gist. I just want you to have an understanding of what is dual nature of radiation so that you could understand the other topics like dual nature of electrons. When you heat any object, radiations are emitted from that object. So in the mid 19th century, physicists were trying to study what these radiations are made up of. So the first theory which explained the nature of these thermal radiations is called as electromagnetic wave theory, which was proposed by James Clerk Maxwell in the year 1864. According to this theory, radiations possess wave character. When we say radiations, there are different radiations. When we say light is also a radiation. So instead of radiations, in many places light would have been used. So both represent the same. So radiations possess wave character. These radiations, they consist of electric and magnetic fields which are oscillating perpendicular to each other, and hence these radiations are also called as electromagnetic radiations. Since electromagnetic wave theory says radiations possess wave character, and these waves have certain characteristics, we can define certain terms for wave. The first term is wavelength. See, this is a wave. The distance between these two, what do we call these peaks? We call them as crest and this as trough. So the distance between two crests is called as a wavelength and it is represented as a lambda. Same way, the distance between two trough is also called as wavelength, and again it is represented as lambda. We use one more term to define a wave, which is called as frequency. Frequency is defined as the number of waves passing through a point in 1 second. So these wavelength and frequency are inversely proportional. So as the wavelength increases, frequency decreases. When wavelength decreases, frequency increases. And this is the relationship between wavelength and frequency. Frequency is represented as nu. Nu is equal to c by lambda. C is nothing but the velocity of light. So all these radiations travel with the speed of light. There are different types of electromagnetic radiations, and depending upon their wavelength, they are arranged in the increasing order. We call that arrangement as electromagnetic spectrum. So there are cosmic rays, gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, visible rays, infrared, microwaves and radio waves. So light is also an electromagnetic radiation and it possesses wave character. So according to electromagnetic wave theory, remember, radiations possess wave character, which means a light possesses wave character, and that represents light can travel in the form of wave. So this theory successfully explained these two phenomenon, interference and diffraction. When light falls on an obstacle, it bends around the obstacle. So these two phenomena, interference and diffraction, were successfully explained by electromagnetic wave theory. So bending around an obstacle is diffraction and overlapping of one wave on the other is called as interference. So these two could be explained only when we consider light travels in the form of wave. But this theory could not explain these two phenomena, which is black body radiation and photoelectric effect. So to explain these two phenomena, a new theory was proposed by Max Planck. So it is called as Planck's quantum theory, which was proposed by Max Planck in the year 1900, and this theory was further extended by Einstein in 1905. So according to Planck's quantum theory, light is made up of discrete particles called photons. According to wave theory, light is made up of waves, so it travels in the form of waves. But according to Planck's quantum theory, light is made up of discrete particles called photons. If this is a beam of light, this is how light travels. So based on this theory, it could successfully explain black body radiation and photoelectric effect. Photoelectric effect means when you try to strike the surface of a metal with radiations, it will eject an electron from the surface of the metal. So if it is ejecting an electron, this is similar to if you arrange a pile of stones and try to hit with the pile of stones with another stone, it will knock out the stone. Same way, when you are trying to hit the metal surface with a radiation, it is knocking out electron. So that is possible only when light travels in the form of photon. A photon is going and hitting an electron and knocking it down. So to explain these two phenomenon, black body radiation and photoelectric effect, Planck gave this theory that light is made up of discrete particles called photons. But this theory could not explain interference and diffraction. So now the problem arises. When you take electromagnetic wave theory, you can successfully explain interference and diffraction, but that cannot explain black body radiation and photoelectric effect. But if you consider Planck's quantum theory, you can successfully explain black body radiation and photoelectric effect, but you cannot explain interference and diffraction. So what to do now? To rectify that confusion, Einstein proposed dual character of light in 1905, in which he said light behaves both as a wave and also as a stream of particles. So what electromagnetic wave theory said is also right, and what Max Planck said in his quantum theory is also right. Both the character is possessed by light. This was said by Einstein. So now it could successfully explain the interference, diffraction, black body radiation and photoelectric effect. So this character of light to behave both as a wave and also as a particle is called as dual character of light. See, as I told you, Einstein suggested light as wave character as well as particle character. So Bohr took this idea when he came up with the model of atom. That's why we talked about energy of the electron is quantized, angular momentum is quantized. All this comes from this idea of dual nature of light. But in 1924, another scientist, de Broglie, extended this idea of dual nature to all the material particles like electrons, protons and atoms. Not only radiations, even electrons and protons can also have dual character. When Bohr came up with this atom model, electron possessed only particle nature. So considering that, he came up with that atom model. But in 1924, when de Broglie said this, he came up with a mathematical expression. He gave an expression lambda is equal to h by mv, where de Broglie derived the wavelength associated with the moving particle. So if there is a particle which is moving, de Broglie said that particle possesses wave character also, and he derived an equation lambda is equal to h by mv, where lambda is the wavelength of the wave associated with the particle, h is called as Planck's constant, and m is the mass of the particle, and v is the velocity of the moving particle. And you know, mass is the characteristic of a object, of a particle, where lambda is the character of a wave. So when you have an equation connecting both the wavelength and the mass, then you can come to a conclusion that a particle possesses wave character. That's what de Broglie came up with, where m into v, the product of mass into velocity, is equal to the momentum. So h by p. So this relationship is called as de Broglie relation. So we are concluding that electron has dual character. It can not only behave as a particle, it can also behave as a wave. And this is the first drawback in the Bohr's atom model, because when Bohr came up with this atom model, he had an idea that electrons behave as particle. So he could not explain this idea of electron behaving as a wave also. Let's do some calculations to understand this de Broglie relationship in detail. So according to de Broglie, every object, moving object, has a wave associated with it. For example, even you and I, when we are moving, we are associated with a wave. But why don't we see that wave, or why don't we identify that wave? Let's explain that with an example. Now look at this question. What will be the wavelength of a ball of mass 0.1 kg moving with a velocity of 10 meter per second? Now according to de Broglie's relationship, lambda is equal to h by mv. H, I told you, Planck's constant, and its value is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. And what is the mass given? 0.1 kg. And what is the velocity? 10 meter per second. So when you do the calculation, you're getting an answer 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34. So the wavelength associated with this object, this moving object, is very, very small because of the large mass. See, wavelength and the mass is inversely proportional. So as the weight, which means the mass of the object, increases, the wavelength associated with the object becomes very, very small. So their wave properties cannot be detected. That's the reason why the wave property of you and I, or a very big object, for example a moving elephant, it moves in the form of a wave, but we cannot detect that wave because the mass is very big. So the wavelength becomes very small, and now that wavelength cannot be detected. But when the object is very, very small, like our electron, then it will be significant to measure the wavelength of that wave associated with the electron. Now look at this example. Calculate the wavelength of an electron moving with velocity of 2.05 into 10 to the power 7 meter second. So by de Broglie equation, lambda is equal to h by mv. So what is the h value? 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34, and you know the mass of the electron is 9.11 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg, and substitute the value of the velocity. So when you do the calculation, the wavelength is 3.55 into 10 to the power minus 11 meter. Now this is a comparatively a bigger value than the one which we calculated in the previous example, where it came around 10 power minus 34. Now this wavelength associated with electron, okay, it is very large because the mass is very small. You know, mass of the electron is very small. So the wavelength associated with the electron can be measured. So this wave can be detected experimentally. So you can, the wavelength can be measured, detected experimentally. So that is the reason why the wavelengths associated with objects with heavy mass cannot be detected. So according to de Broglie, electrons behave as wave and also as particle. So this is the first drawback in Bohr's atom model, and now we will see the second discovery, which became another drawback for the Bohr's atom model. It is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It was proposed by Werner Heisenberg in the year 1927. So he said it is impossible to determine simultaneously the exact position and exact velocity of an electron. So when you're talking about a moving electron in an atom, according to Werner Heisenberg, it is not possible to find out the exact position where the electron is present and the exact velocity, which means the speed with which the electron is moving. It can be mathematically expressed as delta x into delta p greater or equal to h by 4 pi. Here this delta x is uncertainty in the position. Uncertainty is the opposite of certain. So uncertainty means the degree to which you are not certain, you are not very sure about the position. So this is giving you the uncertainty in the position, where delta p is the uncertainty in the momentum. I told you momentum can be written as mass into velocity. So this delta p can be written as m into delta v. So del x into m into del v is greater or equal to h by 4 pi. So whereas del v is the uncertainty in the velocity, which means you are not certain about the velocity. This gives you the degree of uncertainty in the velocity. So del x into del v greater or equal to h by 4 pi, bringing this m to the denominator. So this is the mathematical expression of Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So we cannot exactly measure both the position and the velocity. If you are measuring the position exactly, velocity becomes uncertain. If you are measuring the velocity exactly, then the position becomes uncertain. You know why this happens? If you want to locate the position of the electron, we have to use light, so that the photon of the light hits the electron and the reflected photon is seen in the microscope. So this way you can locate the position of the electron. But when you hit the electron with the light, what will happen? The electron will absorb that light. It will jump from one orbit to another orbit. So the position will change. And also the velocity of the electron is disturbed. So you cannot measure simultaneously, which means at the same time both the position and the velocity. You can measure either of these two. If you do get a exact value of position, then you cannot measure velocity. When you get the exact value of velocity, you cannot measure position. Look here, this is the gist of Heisenberg uncertainty principle. If the position of the electron is known with high degree of accuracy, so that means del x is very small. When del x is small, which means the location of the electron is accurately known, then what will happen? The velocity of the electron will be uncertain. That shows del v is large. So when del x is small, del v will be large, which means the position is known with certainty, velocity becomes uncertain. Same way, if the velocity of the electron is known precisely, so when you know it certainly, then uncertainty will become small. What is uncertainty in velocity? Del v. So when del v is small, then the position of the electron will become uncertain, which means del x becomes large. The uncertainty of the position becomes large. So if you know one thing with certainty, the other's uncertainty becomes large. So you cannot measure position and velocity of an electron exactly at the same time. You have to remember one thing, just like how we used de Broglie relationship to calculate wavelength, and we said it is not significant for the objects with heavier mass. The wavelength associated with objects having heavy mass cannot be detected. Same way, this Heisenberg uncertainty principle is significant only for microscopic particles, motion of microscopic particles, and not for macroscopic particles like planets. Look here, the effect of Heisenberg uncertainty principle is significant only for motion of microscopic objects and negligible for that of macroscopic objects. Now look here, if uncertainty principle is applied to an object of mass 10 power minus 6 kg, then what will be this del x into del v value? H by 4 pi m. You know h is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34. 4 into pi value is 3.14. Mass is given as 10 power minus 6 kg. And what is the value? 10 power minus 28. This value is extremely small and insignificant. So when the mass is big for an object, then this Heisenberg uncertainty principle becomes insignificant, because this value is very, very low, so it cannot be significant. Same way, if you apply this Heisenberg uncertainty principle to electron whose mass is 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg, you are getting a value of 10 power minus 4 meter inverse square second inverse. Now this value is a small value. So now it becomes significant. So that's why we said the effect of Heisenberg uncertainty principle is significant only for motion of microscopic particle and not for macroscopic objects. So if you want to find the exact position of electron, say for example delta x is small, which means you are finding the position exactly. for example, you are taking 10 power minus 8 meter, then what will be the del V value? 10 power minus 4 divided by 10 power minus 8 will give you 10 power 4. So del V becomes large, which means you cannot find exact velocity. So del X is small, you can find the exact position of the electron. When del X is small, del V becomes large, which means the uncertainty in the velocity becomes large. So as a whole, the conclusion is you cannot measure the exact position and velocity or momentum of a microscopic particle with accuracy simultaneously, which means at the same time. But in Bohr's model of atom, he said electrons move along definite circular paths and hence their position and momentum could be determined with absolute accuracy. Now that becomes unacceptable because just now we have seen according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So that is a serious drawback in the Bohr's atom model. So now we know we cannot exactly find the position of an electron in an atom. So all we can do now is we can talk only in terms of probability of finding the electron. So we will be seeing in the next video what is meant by the probability of finding an electron. So before ending this video, let's see a few more examples based on this de Broglie equation and Heisenberg uncertainty principle. A microscope using suitable photons is employed to locate an electron in an atom within a distance of 0.1 angstrom. What is the certainty involved in the measurement of its velocity? They are asking you the uncertainty involved. So they are asking you in the velocity, which means del V is asked. So del X into m del V is equal to h by 4 pi. This is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Now you are asked to calculate del V. Del V is equal to h by 4 pi into del X into m. You are bringing all this to the denominator. Now substitute all the values. H value is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. Joule is also equal to kg meter square second inverse square. So when you do all the calculations, always remember whenever you are substituting the values, you have to substitute along with the units. Then only in the final answer you have to give the final unit. But while substituting, make sure you substitute the values with the units. So when you multiply, you are getting 0.579 into 10 to the power 7 meter per second. Now look here, in the question 0.1 angstrom is given, but you want the unit to be in meters. So we have seen in the first lesson, 1 A naught will be equal to 10 power minus 10 meter. So you are converting it into meter and then doing the calculation. 0.579 into 10 to the power 7 meter per second. So if you want to express it in 5.79, what will happen? You are moving the decimal. So 10 power 6 meter per second. Calculate the mass of a photon with wavelength 3.6 angstrom. So here lambda is given, wavelength is given, lambda is equal to 3.6 angstrom, and just now I told you 3.6 into 10 to the power minus 10 to convert it into meter. Velocity, we are talking about photon, which is light. What is the velocity of light? 3.0 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. And according to de Broglie equation, lambda is equal to h by mv. They are asking you to calculate the mass m. So m is equal to h by lambda v. So substitute all the values. You are getting 6.135 into 10 to the power minus 29 kg. So you can use this equation to calculate mass or velocity or wavelength, because h is a constant which you already know. So now Bohr's atom model could not explain these de Broglie's dual nature of electron and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Considering these two developments, new model of atom was proposed, and that is called as quantum mechanical model of atom, which considers electrons to behave as both particle and also as wave. So we will be seeing about this probability of finding an electron in the next video.